Well, good morning and welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim. Today we continue reading Flying Against Time with Chapter 19. You'll have to forgive me. You may have noticed last week my voice was a bit off. I've been struggling with a bit of a cold, so continue and you'll just have to put up with the strange voice. Chapter 19. The astounded thug went down as though stricken by lightning. The next instant, Ted Scott leapt to the rail of the boat and dived headforemost into the water. Shouts of rage and scurrying of feet were in his ears as he went down. He did not seek to check his dive when he struck. The farther he went down, the longer he could swim under water. He had been near the stern of the boat when he dived, and he had noted from the course of the oncoming vessel that it would cut across the wake rather than the bow of the boat from which he had escaped. He swam under water as long as possible, and it was only when his head was reeling and his lungs seemed to be ready to burst that he rose to the surface. A wild clamor broke out on his appearance, but the momentum of the boat had carried it far out of the range of shots, assuming that his captors would be ready to resort to such desperate measures. From the jangling of bells in the engine room, Ted knew that frantic orders were being given to bring the launch about. But it took some time before the speed could be checked and the boat swung around. All this time the strange vessel was coming closer. It seemed as though through their glasses the officers aboard had sensed excitement and surmised it was worth looking into. For the boat was now coming on at a railroad speed, sending great sheets of spray from her bow as she cut the water. Ted, in the meantime, was swimming with all his might toward the oncoming boat. It represented the only hope of his salvation. He must reach it before his captors reached him, or all his work would have gone for naught. It had fully turned now, and the boat that bore his enemies was bearing down on him. It was a question of which vessel would reach him first. On came the motor launch under full head of steam, the thugs standing in a group at the bow, waving their arms and hurling threats at the fugitive. Ted threw a glance over his shoulder. What miracle had happened? The pursuing boat had suddenly veered off sharply to the right and was making off at all speed. He shook the water from his eyes and looked toward the strange vessel. He could see the officers and crew crowding aft, some with ropes in their hands to throw to him. But he saw more than that. He saw the United States flag floating at the stern. His heart leapt. A federal revenue cutter! The cutter slackened speed as it drew near Ted Scott, and a couple of ropes were thrown overboard. He grabbed the nearer one and was quickly hauled up on deck. "I guess we came along just in the nick of time," remarked the man in captain's uniform. "Who are you and what's the trouble?" "My name is Scott," panted Ted, but got no further. "Not Ted Scott, the flyer!" exclaimed the captain, while a murmur rose from the others. "Yes," said Ted. "By Jove," said the captain as he grasped Ted's wet hand and shook it warmly. "It's only an hour ago that we got a wireless telling us of your mysterious disappearance and directing us to be on the watch for suspicious vessels. Just a minute." He gave the signal for full speed ahead, and the vessel shot in pursuit of the thug's boat, which now, owing to the stoppage to pick up Ted, had got a long start. The captain turned to Ted. "I never thought I'd have the honor of pulling the most famous aviator in America out of the water," he said with a smile. "My name's Ellison. Now tell me all about it." Ted told of the kidnapping and the events that had followed. "Drugged and kidnapped?" exclaimed Captain Ellison when Ted had finished. "The scoundrels! Well, they've reached the end of their tether. In a little while we'll have the whole gang." "Do you think you can catch them?" asked Ted quickly. "Watch us," replied the captain. "This beauty of mine can travel 2 miles to their 1. The jig is up as far as they're concerned." "They're all armed and they're a pretty desperate gang," remarked Ted. "They may put up a fight." "If they do, I'll blow 'em out of the water," replied Captain Ellison grimly. "Murphy!" he directed a boatswain. "Get the 1-pounder ready." A tarpaulin was dragged from the gun on the bow, and the weapon turned in the direction of the fleeing quarry. The cutter drew up on the fugitive boat hand over hand, and was soon within speaking distance. "Heave to!" shouted the captain through his megaphone. No attention was paid to the order. "Send a shot in front of their bows, Murphy," commanded the captain. "Don't hit her, but send it close enough to let them see we mean business." The gun roared, and the effect was immediate. The engine stopped, and the thug's vessel drifted along on her momentum. The cutter ran down alongside and threw over grapplers that held the two boats together. The cutter's crew, armed with rifles, all ranged at the rail, ready for instant action. "Who's in command here?" called the captain. "I am," replied a sullen, weather-beaten man whom Ted had not seen before. "You're not any longer," said Captain Ellison curtly. "You're a prisoner, together with your crew and passengers." "What for?" expostulated the man. "I ain't done nothing but hire my boat to a party for a cruise." "You can tell that to the judge," snapped Captain Ellison. "Come aboard and bring those rats with you before I come over with a squad and yank them out of their holes. Lively there now!" "I'll tell 'em," growled the man, and went into the cabin. 2 minutes later he emerged, followed by a chest-fallen and abject lot of thugs as he had ever gathered together. The eyes of their leader glowed with demonic hate as they rested on Ted Scott. "Come over here one by one," Captain Ellison ordered curtly. Under the compelling muzzles of the rifles, the men obeyed. Some boards had been thrown over the rails, and across these the ruffians scrambled one at a time. As each reached the deck he was seized, searched, his weapons taken from him, and handcuffs clasped upon his wrist. "You dirty rats," said Captain Ellison witheringly. "You're going to get yours good and plenty. 10 years anyway, maybe 20. Take 'em down to the brig and set a strong guard over 'em," he commanded. "See that they get nothing but bread and water till I turn 'em over to the police." As they were being hustled away, none too gently, their leader turned his livid, scowling face towards the young aviator. "If it's the last thing I do, I'll get you yet," he snarled. "Naughty, naughty," grinned Ted, shaking his finger at the fellow, as though in reproof. "A good day's work," commented Captain Ellison, as the last of the thugs disappeared below deck. "Now I suppose I can't get to Boston too quickly to suit you," he said, turning to the young airman. "You bet you can't," returned Ted. "Where are we now?" "Off the coast of Maine," was the reply. "But you've seen how this beauty of mine can travel. I'll get you to Boston in a hurry." He told a detachment of his crew to take possession of the captured boat and to take it into port. Then he turned the nose of the cutter toward Boston and kept the engines humming at full speed. He sent a wireless appraising the authorities of the capture, and when they reached their wharf, a squad of police was on hand to take charge of the prisoners. Walter Hapworth was there too, and Jackson, their faces haggard with the anxiety they had endured, but now lighted up with rapturous welcome. They fairly hugged Ted Scott in their delight at seeing him again. And that's the end of Chapter 19. We'll continue next week with Chapter 20, Off for the Coast. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.